Okay, Safe Journeys forecast 101 hurricane season. Gotta love this season. Okay, so right now we got Irma sitting somewhere around over here. What I think is gonna happen is Irma's gonna actually come along the coastline of all Cuba, Haiti, Puerto Rico, I believe is getting hit right now. And I think the center of the storm is actually gonna hit brush along the eastern side of Florida. I really don't think it's going to come into Florida. I don't think the center of the storm is ever going to reach the inside part of Florida. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's a huge front line and a strong jet stream that is coming down right now. And we are getting rain here in New England because of this front line. And it's just dumping. And why I'm waiting so long to get this out, because I really wanted to see if this front line was going to stall out. And right now it is starting to stall out, which is a good thing. Unless you love storms, then it's a bad thing because then the storm can't refuel. But right now we have a stall. The front is starting to stall out here in the back end of it. And we have a little depression that's over here in the Gulf, in the eastern side of the Gulf, or western side of the Gulf, my bad. That depression is actually almost tying in with the front line. And the depression is also moving eastward, which is really funny because if it was starting to head west, going through Mexico, then I would say that this Irma would sneak underneath the front line, could refuel here in the Gulf, and then come back in through Florida. But right now, what it's looking like to me is that the front line and the depression, besides that it's moving this way with a strong jet stream, it's not weak, it's a very strong jet stream, it is going to keep pushing and divert Irma more out to the Atlantic. Another thing too is watch the storm. When you have the convection, also in the radar, when you're looking at the rain and the wind and all that stuff, if you're seeing most of that convection to the north and northeast of the center of the storm, that's a good thing. It means the storm is breaking apart and it's starting to be sheared by the upper level winds, which is your jet stream. If you start seeing more and more convection down in the southeastern side, well, that's the strongest part of the storm, and that's for every storm that's out there. The south side is the most damaging area, and if you don't start seeing more of the south staying strong, then the storm's not weakening, which means it's just going to keep pushing. But right now, what I see is that it's starting to weaken a little bit, and by the time I think it hits Florida, all you homies down there in the SoFlo area, I think it's going to drop down to a Category 2. It might even drop to a Category 1 before it even touches Florida. And I'm talking like the center part of the storm, not just the wind bands, because the wind bands can stretch hundreds and hundreds of miles. And the wind bands you just got to watch out for: water spouts, tornadoes, a couple thunderstorms, maybe some bursts of wind gusts, here and there. But I wouldn't worry too much. You should always be prepared anyway. I don't care. This is a hurricane area, and everybody here should just already be prepared. It's better to be prepared than be scared. This geophysicist that I watch all the time, he says that all the time about earthquakes. You're always better off being prepared than being scared, and I think it's a great term. But right now, I really think Irma's not going to destroy Florida. I don't think it's going to come into Florida, at least the center of the storm. I think it's going to stay right along the coast, just like that last so-called hurricane that I called that was only hitting the outside part of Florida. I think it's going to follow the same line. I also think that because of how strong this jet stream is, I don't even think Irma is going to reach as far as Virginia. I think by the time it hits up, getting through Carolinas, it's going to really just get pushed right out to the Atlantic. But the Bahamas, you're going to get screwed. You're going to get hit by any type of storm it is. It doesn't matter if it's a Category 1 to a Category 5. Bahamas are going to get hit. Anywhere along here is going to get hit. And for an extended forecast, because when you're looking at storms, you don't just look at what the storm is doing. You have to look beyond the storm, such as the front line. You have to look past that, and you have to know the jet stream. These are some things that, well, most meteorologists aren't telling you on TV, period. Because I don't know why. I just don't know why. Because that has all the variables of the trajectory of which way it is. That's why forecast models will sit there and have 50 different lines, because there's 50 million things that can happen to this front line. It took me a couple days to get this because I've been really trying to watch this front line. This front line is everything in saving Florida from getting nailed by a devastating hurricane. One thing that I was calling, and I was waiting for it to actually happen, and I waited right, is that the front line is starting to stall, which is a good thing, because with a stalled front, while it's still trying to push with a strong jet stream, it means this whole front end is starting to push down a little bit. So it's going to stretch out, and with it stretching out, it's going to block a lot, and it's going to start diverting a lot. And with it doing all that, it's going to start shearing a lot of that hurricane. So it's going to drop down the force of the hurricane, which is a good thing if you don't like storms. Another extended forecast here that I've noticed, because California has been steaming up, and I know all you Cali homies, skating in that heat kind of sucks, but I give you props skating in the heat. I tell you, you guys are going to be cooling down in a few days. Don't worry about staying too hot. There is a monster trough that's coming down. It is a really strong jet stream that's dipping down, and it's got a couple low pressures right here and one over here. All of that is pushing, and as that is pushing and the jet stream's coming up and then dropping back down and coming back up, all this moist air coming from the south and from the equator is really driving in the heat, and that's why you're getting extreme heat right now in California, or at least all the western side of the states. So once that starts pushing, and I think it's in a few days, it's going to just push right into land, you guys are going to start cooling down. So extended forecast, Kelly, get ready for some cooler air. There might even be a little bit of snow drifts, I think, up in Washington area, maybe some of the snow peaks, maybe as it moves into the Rockies and the Cascades all through here. You could see a little bit of snow on the mountaintops, maybe a little slushy air. But right now, Irma is looking like it's more on the coast than on land. So don't worry too much. Just make sure you have some extra water just in case. Make sure you got extra food, all that happy stuff. Hope you can build a fire. I don't know. You can